here in Kenya, the hits and the misses, and the next 10 years. My team of experts are in the house. This is a topic that is so close to many hearts of Kenyans. And of course, we shall be looking at what do we need to do to strengthen devolution in the next 10 years and beyond. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You're right on time for the most intelligent conversation this side of Sahara. This is The Scorecard. We are live from Broadcasting House, and we are in the company of Yambo. She's going to share with us some very interesting data about devolution in the last 10 years and what we need to improve on. And as we say, numbers do not lie, because at the end of the day, they are stubborn. Yambo, what are the numbers telling us tonight?
Thank you very much, O'Brien Kimani, and thank you also back at home for joining us. This is indeed The Scorecard, and just as O'Brien has already alluded to, we are celebrating 10 years of devolution. What are the hits and misses of devolution? So let's get to the basics of devolution. Definitely the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution is what gave birth to devolution, introducing the 47 counties system of governance. And then when we look at the objectives of devolution, in Article 174 spells out the objectives of devolution, which include to unlock Kenya's economic capability, reducing inequalities and discrimination. Remember, there are some counties which have been, marginalized, and so devolution was brought in to see if at all they can actually be supported to be at par with the other counties, promote gender equality and increase access to quality services, just bringing services closer to the people and addressing youth unemployment. So that is a question we want to put across to our guests today. Has devolution really, created employment for the youth? So that is one of the issues that we'll be tackling in today. Bringing resources closer to the people, promote democratic and accountable exercise of power. Definitely with the county assemblies, people are now able to exercise their power closer home. Now, when we look at devolution milestones, just to touch on a few, we have the human resources for health. There is also agriculture, which is devolved. Education in terms of the ECD is also evolved. But looking at the human resources for health, O'Brien, out of the 190,000 employees in the health sector, that is the doctors, the nurses, and all that, 125,400 of them, which makes about 66% of the health workers, are actually employed by the county governments. Now, the county governments have also recruited approximately 107,839 community health volunteers. Now, community health volunteers, generally what they do is to offer services right at the village level. That is the primary health care. Now, more than 20,000 medical oxygen cylinders distributed across all the 47 counties, including establishment of 22 oxygen plants. Now, in the pre-primary section, which is a devolved service, enrollment for pre-primary education stands at it has increased to 2,979,106 in 2022 compared to 2,845,265 in 2021. There's also increase in primary centers. Generally, those are classrooms, from 46,671 in 2021 to 48,412 in 2022. ECD teachers employed 79,864. Out of this 79,864, 54,637 are employed by the counties, while 25,232 are employed in the private sector, translating to a pupil-teacher ratio of 41:4. I don't know whether that's good news, O'Brien, but we'll be getting to know from our guests also. So when it comes to financing, so far in the last 10 years, 2.9 trillion shillings is what has been disbursed to the counties as equitable share. This is normally from the national government. 213 billion in conditional grants from development partners, 147 billion for conditional grants from the national government. So apart from conditional grants from the national government and also from the development partners and the equitable share, Counties are also expected to collect their own revenue, what is known as their own source revenue. So this particular slide is just showing us what were the targets, and this is the latest from the Controller of Budget that was released in May this year, in the last 9 months. So in financial year 2022-2023, and so Kitui, Kirinyaga, and Vihiga are the counties which performed the highest in terms of their percentage. Now, 400 million is what Kitui County had targeted to collect, but the actual collection stands at 338,546,886. Now that makes about 84% of the collection. Vihiga 284,773,000, so 208. They collected 219,241,295. This is according to the county treasury. Now, when we look at this slide, is showing that a whopping 22 counties failed to meet their targets, or at least performed the lowest, starting with Kwale, Yambo, Kisumu, Kakamega, Taita Taveta, Busia, Nairobi. These are just a few because there are 22 of them. But I think for me, O'Brien, what stood out is Nairobi. So Nairobi, the target was 17 billion shillings. That was the target for Nairobi to, collect. But it ended up only collecting 7 billion shillings. So that's a very big gap. So it's one of the counties that actually has performed dismally in as far as on-source revenue is concerned. So those are some of the statistics that I was able to collect for you today. So hope it also brings insights to you back at home, just to see how devolution is working. Is it working or not working? So our question of the day today is, has devolution worked for you? How has devolution worked for you? That is our question of the day. And we'd like to hear from you. We'll be sampling some of your views within this broadcast. McBride Shinachi on Facebook is saying, despite opening room for corruption in my county Kakamega, we have something to celebrate. So that is McBride Shinachi saying. Miriam Daki Sam says it has improved many sectors. Devolution is key to develop marginalized places. Congratulations for the idea. So we'd like to sample some of your views. So get talking to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and we'll be able to get back to you right in the middle of this program. So Brian, I hand it over to you for the insightful discussions.
Very good indeed, Marie. Thank you very much indeed. The numbers there telling a very interesting story. A very compelling story. And that's why we just want to focus on the state of devolution 10 years on. Remember, Kenya embarked on this new system of governance back in the year 2013. And so it has been a case of trial and error. There has been a lot of successes and, in the same breath, a number of failures. And so the question is, how do we learn from our failures, implement the changes, and of course we move forward? Because as we say, those who never learn from history are bound to repeat history. Well, tonight we are in the company of great men and women. Marie Yambo is part of this conversation, and of course Professor Fred Ogola. He's always with us, and tonight he's joining us to help us put this conversation into perspective. Fred, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Oban.
Asante sana.
Yeah,
Next to Fred Ogola, we have Whitney Misheni. She is a political economist, a regular face on this show, and she's joining us tonight. Asante sana, Whitney.
Thank you, Brian, and a good evening to your viewers.
Very good. And next to Whitney Misheni, we have the chair of the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee. This is the link between the national and the county governments. If there are disturbances, then it is the work of this organization to come in between the two levels of government and bring peace and make peace. We're talking to the chair, Kithenji Kiragu. He's also here with us so that he can give us an account of devolution 10 years later. Thank you very much, Kithenji, for your time.
Thank you very much, O'Brien. I'm happy to be here, and good evening to the viewers.
Very good indeed. And I want to start with you. Has devolution been a success in Kenya?
Devolution has been a success in Kenya. Devolution was always going to be a long journey. We have come far. We still have a long way to go. But on that journey, I would say we are still on track on that journey. And therefore, I would say we made great strides. And as you correctly put it, yes, there are still challenges, and we still need to trod on to complete the journey. Yes.
If I was to ask you, I mean, what would you highlight as the biggest achievement of devolution?
Okay, I'll answer it more broadly and say, okay, I mean, the Constitution made many objectives of devolution, but actually we can summarize them to two. On one hand is what we can call democratic governance. The people feeling they have a government they own, the people feeling that they have some power at the local level, the people feeling that they can take care of some of their problems. That is one part of this journey. The other leg is what I call development and service delivery. And because I've said this actually to you, some of your correspondents lately, I would say on the journey of democratic governance, where the people feel they have assumed some responsibility for their development, they can account to themselves, they can chart their way forward in terms of development, I would say we have done very well as a country. Because we have got governments in place, county governments, in ways which are not paralleled in many places. And those governments are actually functioning. And, you know, I mean, they are generally quite well established, actually. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I look at the other places on the continent, for example, even beyond, and I look at others, and I would say our county governments compare very well, even to federal governments elsewhere, in terms of how they are well established.
Yeah.
And the fact is that also people have been given the opportunity to elect those leaders. Therefore, you know, on that place, I would say, as I say, we have done, we have scored A on the journey towards democratic governance.
Hold your horses, we'll come back to the scoring point.
Yes. Now, secondly, I would say on the development side and service delivery side, I would say, again, very commendable progress has been made. And I say, on that part of how we have done, on that part of the journey, on that leg, I would say we are at B. You know, we are not yet at A.
You are ahead of time.
And there are many reasons why we are not there. And therefore, as I say, you know, we have much more space to make in terms of development and service delivery.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I mean, the time for scorecarding will come, and definitely we'll see how we're going to fare. I want to turn now to Whitney Misheni. I mean, Mary Yambo has just, you know, spelled out the numbers, you know, in terms of resources that has been given to the counties. And she talked about 2.9 trillion Kenya shillings. And when you look at the financial year 2023-2024, this is expected to breach the 3 trillion shillings mark. But when you look at the 47 counties, do you see investments worth 3+ trillion shillings?
Okay, well, thank you, Brian, and also now a good evening to your viewers. When we look at devolution, we're looking at the development of power, we're looking at the development of resources and also representation. Now, when we come to the part of resources, as you have rightly said, 2.9 trillion has been disbursed to the 47 counties. We know some of the functions that have been devolved include health, they include education, the ECD part, the early childhood development. We also look at agriculture. We also look at infrastructure, some parts of infrastructure. So when we look at the resources that have been disbursed to the counties, we look at what strides have they made in those sectors which have been devolved. When we look at healthcare, we do see that some counties are still yet to the brick and mortar is there. As we know, the first cohort of governors really did invest in the brick and mortar aspect of the health service
of development.
Exactly, of development. But when we look at the soft care issues, Did they actually employ healthcare providers? Did they actually put medicine into the hospitals? That's a bit of a challenge. When we look at education, I do think that the ECD has been a success story in terms of the counties. Infrastructure, it goes county to county basis, meaning there's some counties which have performed incredibly well in terms of road network, especially when we look at the northern districts which actually did not have any road network. So I do believe that infrastructure has been greatly improved. Agriculture, when we look at the disbursement to we see that the national government still holds a majority of the budget of agriculture, despite it being 100% devolved, other than the policy. So when we're talking about the resources being disbursed, we're also looking at, is the national government holding a majority of the budget that is meant to be devolved to the counties. So I do believe that they have faced some challenges, be it late disbursement and also minimal disbursement of those functions that have been devolved. But some counties have done exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Prof, as a governance expert, this has been said in some quarters that by going the devolution way, somehow Kenya also managed to devolve corruption and embezzlement of public funds. Would you say devolution has been a success in the last 10 years?
Well, O'Brien, the scorecard, as you said, is the most intelligent conversation in town. And we have matrices to measure. So like you said, devolution, like Mary Yambo just told us, one objective was to bring resources close to the people. And Whitney has talked about bringing these resources close to the people. Also representation, at the same time actually development, because remember there was a lot of skewedness in development in the country, and that's why devolution came by. So according to me, the 2.9 trillion which has been devolved to counties, there is something that you cannot understand this figure before you understand another figure. Let's understand the pending bills. Mm-hmm. The pending bills in all counties by the end of last year was 157 billion. So out of the 2.9 trillion, where does that money go? And Nairobi, which is among the lowest in collecting revenue, actually have the highest pending bills, which is over 100 billion. Nairobi only. Yeah, 111. 111. So the question is, in fact, this is where Kithinji needs to tell us. According to me, as a governance expert, there should be a budget process where any supplier that offers their goods and services to the county should be given that job according to the budget. Meaning, if there was a budget, there's money allocated, so there should be no need of having pending bills. But look, when you talk about 157 billion pending bills, what does it mean? Devolution was supposed to take resources to the people in the counties, and the people went and either borrowed money or got money from other sources of their own kind, their own money, and then offered services and goods to the county, and they were not paid. So devolution, which was supposed to take resources to the people, is taking away resources from the people by them offering goods and services and not being paid. Mm-hmm. So that one for me is the biggest unmaking in this whole process. In fact, we know our friends, I'm sure maybe you know one or two of friends of us who resigned from some work somewhere to become a supply in a county. And I know two people who committed suicide when they were not paid. Not the first time people went to do business with the county government. The suicide levels were very high. I have a few in Kisumu and a few in Siaya. And I also have somebody whom we just rescued by counseling him and telling him, you don't have to die, my brother. Mm-hmm. Just accept, because he was working in a bank, a very good stable job. He took his money. He went to start supplying ICT equipment, what in the county government. And because we have a few glaring cases in counties like Siaya, because I come from Siaya and Kisumu, it is very clear it's happening. Then corruption has another thing. The people who are corrupt up here went to the county with the money they use for corruption to win election in the counties. What do we expect? We expect that happen. Then secondly, the cost of winning an election is a governor. I remember last time Parliament came out with the amount of money you have to spend minimum to win an election. In Turkana, because it's very dispersed, they said it's around 350 million shillings maximum you have to spend. But MPs even refuse to accept, to allow people to give them a cap, because people spend more than 350 million to win an election. So if you spend 350 million shillings to win an election, are you going to bring development? Then lastly, the ghost worker. In Kisii, it was stated that they lose around 2.5 billion shillings annually to ghost workers. And we did extrapolation and found out that in the 10 years of devolution, county government has lost a whooping 840 billion shillings to ghost workers. So any governor who goes
How did you
recycle,
arrive at those numbers?
actually the Kenya Revenue Allocation Survey has provided that data.
By who?
The Kenya, is it the Commission for Revenue Allocation?
For Revenue
It is
Allocation.
there. It's there.
Do you have such numbers, Kithenji?
There are numbers, yes.
But are they as big as Prof is alluding to?
Well, if you think about it in terms of the salaries which all those ghost workers would have received, remember again we are talking about 10 years, and it talks about hundreds of maybe ghost workers in some counties. Yes.
But we must also remember that the issue of ghost workers is not only a challenge to the county government; it is also a challenge to the national government.
They inherited it. That's what devolution. Devolve corruption. So they were best students of the national government. Where corruption was, they devolve it downwards. And for me, that is the biggest challenge. Then the other thing which is good to point out here is that the government has devolved certain functions, but without proportional resources. And to talk about it is healthcare. The Ministry of Health receives a budget, and 30% of the Ministry of Health's budget goes to the counties. 65 remains in the national government, yet healthcare is 100% devolved. My question is, what are you doing with this money here? So you find there's a CSC Health in Siaya or Kisumu or in Homa Bay or wherever, but he has a position. And as Whitney said before, they don't have equipment, there's no bed, they don't have doctors, they don't have nurses. So what exactly are they doing? They're just like Minister for Health, but no health.
Very well. I want to hear this from, even as you respond to what Prof has said. The way we rolled out devolution, I mean, we took a big bites, and there are risks to things because you risk choking. Do you think that the way we embraced devolution in this country was the right way to go, or probably maybe we should have embraced the phased-out approach?
I'll come to what you just said, but let's first of all agree one thing. Prof, with all due respect, some of the points you made may not be entirely correct.
Please highlight
Health, for example, is not 100% devolved. In fact, one of the misconceptions is that there's anything which is 100% devolved. Because although there are specific aspects of health and agriculture and so on which are devolved, let's remember that we are not in a federal state, and therefore, for example, and the Constitution is very clear on this one, policy, legal aspects are national.
They remain with the national government.
Yes, those ones are not devolved. And therefore, the most critical thing is for the two levels of government to work well together, that they have agreed a policy, they have agreed a strategy on how they are going to transform health, for example, and they can work together to achieve it. And I would say a lot of
just some clarity here, and I mean it is well appreciated the fact that according to the Constitution and the separation of powers, the national government is supposed to be in charge of legal and policy issues when it comes to health. But can you also help us understand what does the law say in terms of the management and running of referral hospitals?
It is very clear, there are 6 referral hospitals. Actually, according to the Constitution, you could have even assumed level 5 hospitals were supposed to be national institutions. But to the way things have gone, and that is where we are at the moment, we can say level 6 hospitals is what is now with the national government.
Are they supposed to be with the national government?
They are supposed to be the national government, including aspects to do with research and so forth. But again, even where, for example, primary health care is devolved, There's an aspect of it which is national in terms of, diseases move beyond boundaries, for example, infectious diseases. So the national government cannot sit around and say, leave it to a county government to handle cholera alone when there is a risk that that cholera will go to the next district. So there are aspects of this which also need to be looked at.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I would say, yes, of course, we have many gaps in terms of what the Constitution intended and what is in place at the moment. And if you can recall, during the inauguration of His Excellency President William Ruto, one of his major pronouncements was how he was going to ensure that all devolved functions fully move to the county governments. And that is work which has been going on in the last few months, and which hopefully will therefore remove part of the problem which is spoken here in terms of the national institutions, the national government, the executive, the national executive performing functions which belong to county governments. But that now also has to relate to the question which you posed to me, which was about whether the big bang was the proper way to do it. In many ways, I would say the big bang surprised many people. And there was a lot of trepidation on the part of even development partners in Kenya. I still remember there was one major publication by the donor community, World Bank, Australia government, and so on, called Devolution Without Disruption. That if we are going to do a big bang, we are going to do a major disruption. And I must say, actually, in many ways, we have surprised ourselves and our partners in terms of how that big bang probably worked best for us. Because if we had chosen to go it systematically, the problems we are talking about now, about the functions which are devolved, which have been devolved to counties, not having been transferred to counties, would be much more serious, much more problematic. So with the benefit of hindsight, probably even some of us, if we had been asked, would have said, don't do big bang. But now with the benefit of hindsight, I think the big bang was a major plus. Otherwise, we would still be arguing between who is moving where, and I can tell you, literally, one of the major assignments which my organization, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, has just completed is just the transfer of libraries alone. Right? Which
libraries.
Yes. And which is just a process which is going on now where staff, money is going to the county governments. And I can tell you, it's a very small thing because it's even a budget of only 425 million. But the kind of intricate problems which people have brought about in that process, just one would have been, tells us if we are not going the big bang, where we are now would probably need another 20 years.
Just to correct, there's a good, important correction to make for the sake of our viewers. There's what you call county referral hospitals, but there's teaching and referral. So what he meant was teaching and referral.
Is that what you meant?
Yes, well, that's why there's research and teaching part.
Is that what you meant?
No, actually, the point is that even county governments have started having teaching
their own
and referral hospitals of their own. But they are just a number of the what you call national referral hospitals, which also do teaching and research. And the only one which has emphasized, there are two which have emphasized research, is Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital, and Moi University Teaching and Research Hospital. Those are the two.
What about Jaramogi Odinga?
Well, they all do some research, but because of course they also relate with the universities and so forth. But the point is that, which is of course, therefore, what I'm saying is that, therefore, there are referral hospitals at an accounting government which can also get engaged in research.
And that's why they are called national.
Even KC and so on. No, they don't become a national by that virtue. They become virtue by being, at the moment, level 6 hospital, referral hospitals. Okay, because we have referral hospitals at even level 4. But level 6 referral hospitals, those at the moment are managed by the national government.
No, there's something here to make very clear that the teaching, referral, and research hospitals, counties have not even reached where they can actually manage that, because you see the research funding that goes into hospital, how you qualify to get funding for research. I don't think counties still have capacity for that for now, if given the framework. And also there is something also to highlight here, which is important for Kithinji to explain to us. Service, healthcare service. Would you put more money on healthcare service, or you put more money on healthcare policy and strategy? Because 65% is such a big amount of budget that keeping it for only research and strategy, if I can borrow one of our best, no, not best president, but a nice guy called Arab Moi, used to say, don't waste money on feasibility studies, just start doing it. For example, you see Eldoret Airport, he said, why are you doing feasibility studies? Just do it. Start doing, we shall see what is wrong. In fact, the big bang is also that just start doing it. Just start doing it, then we see it. So
you start and then you learn in the process.
You learn in the process. So he was not very good advocate of these very spending so much money on doing research, strategy, policy, yet people want healthcare, they want drugs, they want medicine. Now, if there's a hospital in Kiambu, which has no medicine, but there's money in research, so this research is leading to what?
What is your question?
No, I think
so my question is, why should you spend 65% on strategy and policy, while 35%, not even that.
Where are you getting 65%?
But that's the figure.
No, okay, let me explain.
Figure from
let's give him time
Prof, I did not want to suggest that the money which is at the Ministry of Health and Budget is for policy, research, and legal work. No, because the facts are that the Ministry of Health has continued to do some of the functions which belong to county governments. And therefore, when those functions go to the county governments in the work we are doing now, the money will move from Ministry of Health to the county governments, okay? So the money is not in the Ministry of Health or even Agriculture. The money they have is not the exclusive of policy and strategy and so on. It is just the fact that some of the functions which they perform now, for reasons which some of them can explain, for reasons which maybe to some degree has to do with resistance to devolution or fear of disruption of services. For those reasons, the ministries have remained to do some things which they should not be doing, but which should go to counties governments.
That is what I've just said. I want to bring in.
What I've said is that there is work which has almost now reached its watershed in terms of the transfer of those functions and the resources budget associated with it from the ministries in the national government to the county governments. And that's what His Excellency the President has directed.
Very well. I know you wanted to say something, Whitney, before we take a short break. Can I give you 1 minute to say something?
Okay, I was just basically summarizing this whole thing as one of the biggest challenges in devolution has been the duplication of the beat personnel or beat resources in the county and the national government. As he's rightly put it, we are paying some people in the counties to actually do, probably like in healthcare, we're paying people in the counties to do jobs which are being done in the national government, but as in the constitution it's being meant to be done by the county government. So I think this is just a whole issue of duplication of resources and personnel in the county government and the national government, because we know that in the national government there are some people who are still centralists. They don't believe in devolution. So it, as he's rightly put it, there's some people who still have that mentality of the resistance to devolution, which leads to duplication of roles.
And I mean, like, in the interest of time, we'll take a short break because we still have some bills to pay, and then thereafter we shall come so that you can make your own interjection. If you were just watching us, we are live from Broadcasting House, and we are live on Scorecard tonight. Our focus is on the state of devolution. We are the company of, let me get you, Kithenji Kirago. He's the chair of Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, as well as Whitney Misheni, a political analyst, a political economist, as well as Professor Alfred Ogola, who is a governance expert. We are taking a short break, and thereafter we'll be back with more conversation. Your company is well appreciated.
That I know is that you are full of lies, but you are not going to fool me again. And don't you even think that you're going to come out of this one alive. Where are you? Tell me. You should at least face me, you darn woman.
Don't you look at me like that, Karina. I know that you're expecting Rodrigo's baby.
I want us to take advantage so that we can fix a pending issue that we've had for many years. Our divorce.
Well, you can forget about it. I'm not signing it.
Las bandidas.
Tusiwe ni wenye kuhukumiana na tusiwe ni wenye kujaji wengine, yani kuambia tuwa encourage watu katika kufanya ibada na kuomba msamaha na kurudi katika nyumba za Mwenyezi Mungu Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Na vile vile pia mja anaweza kutekeleza vitendo vyema sana mpaka akawa karibu sana na janna, lakini akatenda kiovu kimoja ambacho kinampelekea kupata adhabu ya Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala na kuingia katika jahannam.
No member of this family should be working for this company now. And who else to trust if not family? Are you one of Joel's sons?
I need you to keep a close eye on Nick. I don't trust him fully.
It's nothing close to the truth.
Nick, baby. You've never been so big on character. What's changed?
Can I talk to you in private?
Yeah.
You cannot protect us all the time.
None of you can afford to be caught up in this mess.
I can wash my hands and let you handle this mess by yourself with Akina Jazz now your teeth.
There's someone trying to bring us down. Us?
Why do you think I'm here, Nick? Alice stole our daughter and document. Do you have any proof of that? You're working on it.
This is a matter of life and death.
Man, oh man. Welcome back. You're watching the Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. About 30 minutes down the line, we continue with this conversation, the state of devolution in Kenya, 10 years on. We now want to go back to the scoreboard and have a look at what are Kenyans talking about. Instead, in regard to devolution, Yambo, you want to take us through the comment section?
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much, O'Brien. And the question we had asked is, how has devolution worked for you? So your comments are coming in fast and furious. We have Abu Mahmoud Gamoyo, baadhi ya huduma kugatuliwa imekuwa afueni, so for him it has worked. Rotich keeps Evans saying, paying motorbike sticker, parking fee, etc., additional tax has not worked for me. So he has, reservations in as far as devolution is concerned. And then Mark Mamba says, it's just fine, but not what we hoped for. So Brian, those are some of the comments which are coming in. So keep them coming. The question is, how has devolution worked for you? That is our question of the day. I'd like to ask Mr. Githinji, when you talk about, devolution and county governments, the health sector, can I say has been quite vibrant in terms of, doctors going on strike and all that. I'm wondering how the intergovernmental relation has, tried to bridge that gap in terms of, between the county governments and the national government to be able to, can I say, bring a standard, payment, because I think that some of the disparities which are there, some counties are paying better than others and all that. And the other question that I would want you also to discuss with us is it time for us to have is it the health commission, just like the way teachers commission, the teachers have their commission, the TSC, because that is one of the things that the doctors have been pushing for, to enable them, cater for their needs and all that. So that is to you, Mr. Githinji.
Okay, fine. Will you allow me to say something about something we talked about before, and I'll come to this? Yes, about, sometimes we talk about the problems in the county governments as if we had a Nigerian government before county governments came. The problem of, for example, of corruption, is not particular to county governments. In fact, it is a problem of the people of Kenya. It's not a problem of county governments. And I would say, even if this money even if we are not devolved, probably there would still be corruption. Not only that, this time the corruption would be taking the money out. At least if there is some corruption in the counties, because I know there is some, most of the resources are not big enough to be taken out. The development takes place in the country. Mm-hmm. So, so let us also see these things in their right proportion. Let's not forget where we came from.
Corruption is the national problem.
Even for health, mm-hmm. or even, it is not like we came from a very good health system, mm-hmm. and it has corrupted in the hands of the county governments. No, it was much worse, because actually, and I think it is a point which Prof had posed in our conversation, that there are places where they had no hospitals, where they had no doctors. And they have visited those places since devolution.
Very good.
And now they have hospitals, they have dispensaries, they have doctors, and they never had them before. And they used to feel like they were not part of Kenya in terms of those kind of facilities.
Very well.
Therefore, we have done quite well in those things. Or even the problem of ghost workers. First of all, it is not even peculiar to Kenya, because I can say I've worked for many governments on this continent on issues of public service management. And ghost workers have been a perennial problem. And they are
even in other countries.
It is not only a public problem. Mm-hmm. Those people who study audit and accounting will know what we call payroll funding. And payroll funding is a serious problem, even in big corporations, international corporations. So it is not just the government. If you are not vigilant and you are running a big organization, yes, payroll funding, which is what ghost workers is primarily about, will be there. But let's now answer the question which has been asked here by Marie, which is very pertinent, mm-hmm. about health workers. First, let us agree, going health commission way is partly reversing devolution. At the moment, for example, yes, all teachers are managed by Teacher Service Commission and so forth. Mm-hmm. But if you can argue it for health, there's no reason why in time you cannot also argue that we should have Agriculture Extension Workers Commission, for example. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why tomorrow you cannot talk about water technicians and engineers having their own commission. We are on a journey, that's what I've said. And there have been some problems there. But I'll also tell you one thing. It is not one story about health workers. There are places where if you talk about this health commission, those people who felt they were not being served by a centralized system of health management, Okay? The kind of places where we are saying there were no hospitals, there were no nurses and so forth. Those places will not want to hear anything about a health commission. So let us not talk as if all Kenyans have a consensus on this.
But then how do you justify the fact that in the last 10 years we've had about 16 nurses strikes in Kenya and 7 doctors strike?
First, let us first of all agree that first of all, all nurses and doctors are employed by individual county governments. Mm-hmm. Therefore, some county governments...
But they have an umbrella,
well, they have an umbrella union, mm-hmm. and if you look very carefully, it is not always that everybody is on strike. Mm-hmm. If you look very carefully, you will notice that it is not everybody on strike. But more importantly, yes, because some governors have done badly, then they make other governors also look bad, and they make the union, therefore, rally the others to support it. But on that note, let me say that this problem has been recognized. And very recently, there was a very important meeting between His Excellency the President William Ruto and all the governors, and they agreed the solution to this is not to try to roll back devolution in terms of health workers being decentralized in terms of their management, but rather by having, health workers and advisory human resources advisory council, mm-hmm. which therefore will be looking at these problems both from a national perspective, but also from a county perspective in terms of therefore also giving governors advice and so forth. But on that note, let us also take one very important fact, that health workers are the largest workforce, occupation group in all the county governments. The county governments have employed a lot of health workers. Mm-hmm. And therefore, even for most counties, more than a third of the wage bill of a county government go to health workers. Now, health workers also happen to be in a very sensitive situation. Therefore, even a county government doesn't receive resources in good time and is not able to pay its employees in good time. Of course, the largest group which is affected is health workers. And the group which, when it goes on strike, and it becomes most sensitive, mm-hmm. is health workers.
Yeah, I want to bring in Michelle in this conversation, and I want to hear from you. I mean, when you look at the report, the annual report released by the controller of budgets. I mean, the report says that on average, counties are supposed to spend about 30% of their budget on development. That is according to the law. But on average, most counties, they don't even spend 15% of their budgets on development. Why do we have such a low allocation to development?
Thank you, O'Brien. We'll be talking about the budget. 35% of the budget should not, above 35% of the budget should not go to the wage bill. That's one. Secondly, at least 30% should go to development. But as we look at the control of budget reports, we see that the absorption rate of the development budgets has been quite low. But we also see that why that's the case is because I do believe that counties have become employment bureaus, meaning as you've said, 35% of the budget should be not more than 35% of the budget should be going to the wage bill. But we see that some counties have surpassed that to even 60% of the wage bill going to recurrent expenditure. Of 60% of the budget going to recurrent expenditure, meaning it leaves a less of the budget to development. But we also see some governors cite the late disbursement of funds to the counties as one of the reasons why they cannot absorb the budget of development, because we've seen that sometimes we've seen that the National Treasury prioritizes the national government's projects. They take counties as an afterthought. So governors say that when the money is disbursed, the absorption rate is quite low, and also when they're trying to absorb it, probably the money has been released probably one of the few months to the end of the fiscal year, probably be it June. And when the IFMIS system gets closed, probably they don't even have time, as I've said, to absorb that money. But also, it also just now begs the question of on-source revenue of counties, because sometimes we do know that counties, some of these counties have the capacity to get money for be it development or even just to service their own recurrent expenditure. But we've seen that there's so many leakages when it comes to the own source revenue. We've seen that some counties are still they are yet to automate that process, because I do not probably they're yet to automate the revenue system. There's still some counties are still understating what they collect from their revenues. So we see when the counties fully optimize their own source revenue, I do believe that the counties have the capacity to even service the recurrent expenditure and also get development where they'll be providing be it job opportunities or just development in the counties, so that they'll have the multiplier effect. But I do believe that own source revenue in the counties has been a very big challenge, because we've seen that some counties are doing well by automating, but some they still have revenue leakages, as you've seen in the auditors general review.
I know the chair. I want to respond to that, but I also want to hear this from Prof. I mean, when you look at the automation of revenue collection, about almost 85% of all counties in Kenya have managed to automate their revenue collection. But why do we still have collection from own sources still at a paltry 46%?
First of all, Obran, there's a few things here to look at. One is that the Revenue Collection Commission normally gives counties targets. They don't take their own targets. They were given. And actually, in the current budget for 2023, they were given 35% of the potential of the revenue they can collect. So when you're seeing those counties not meeting their targets, they are not meeting a target of 35% of their potential. It tells you that there's a serious own revenue collection, which is a big problem in the county. And you look, for example, in Nairobi, I would actually fault Sakaja. When Sakaja came in, NMS has got a automation system for collecting revenue. Because I'm a taxpayer here, my company buys licenses to do business here. It went poorly manual. And every governor tend to create their own automation. And this is another problem, because now why are you removing some automation and replacing their own? It tells you that the leakages here are created and actually inflicted. So there's another challenge of leakages. Forget about even the automation. The leakages of revenue is out of this world. For example, and this is something you can see. Kithinji, there's a time I went to the airport, and when I was in the airport, I'd parked my car there for 2 days because I drove to the airport, left my car in the airport, then I flew out of the country. When I came back, I was supposed to be paying something like 3,500 for parking. Then a security guard came and told me, can I give you a more recent receipt? Then we share the difference.
And of course you said yes.
No, I can't say yes. What I'm trying to say, can you imagine? Can you just imagine how much revenue
leakages that we
have?
So
the leakages are amazing. To what extent can you automate even the human being who is giving this receipt? So because the receipt is automated, it can record how many hours the car has been in the airport, but there's a human element. So I think we need to move away just from that automation, and also move away from when we become Kenyans who wants to collect revenue. The president has been crying about, let's collect revenue and depend on our own taxes.
Very well.
But if a Kenyan is helping other people to escape that payment,
then we have a challenge.
We have a problem.
I want to hear this from Kirago. Why is it that collection of revenue by county government still at about 46%?
Well, I think partly that's what Prof has alluded to. Systems failure, that the systems are not good enough.
But are they designed to fail?
Back again also to
are the systems designed to fail?
Let's first of all agree on the big bang. There was that aspect of disruption, okay? And the disruption was exacerbated, especially in the initial years, for several years actually, because of course, you found other revenue collector and you want to bring in your own revenue collection people. Which whether you found a system and you want to change it to have your own system. Those disruptions.
So that it can fit your needs.
Yes, but now when you do those kind of things and you are dealing with smart Kenyans, you are creating loopholes for them to take whatever they can take from you. And therefore, the most important thing is that sense of integrity needs to percolate through the whole system. And I would say from a financial management point of view, there are no controls which are better than the ethos, the integrity, the culture of your employees. Because however good your system is, and you have seen it even in the banks, you have been, you know how rigorous banks are, and the employees are still able, if there are enough of them, 10 of them connive to steal from you, you will discover it later on, maybe, if you are lucky, but you also may not discover it. Therefore, so there are significant, there are many elements in this.
And how should we cure this?
Well, how you cure this is, of course, therefore, if you move in as a governor and your finance management team, first of all, the systems have to be good, but the people also have to be good.
But we have seen a situation whereby, when a new governor comes into the office,
yes,
the first assignment is to replace everyone and to change the systems. Can we get to a point whereby, regardless of who is in the office, you have the right people in the office and you have the right systems in place?
Well, I don't think you can make that general rule for only one reason. Because the governors come to the office and they have a sense money has been, the county has been losing money, okay? And some of them very genuinely try to bring in a new system and new people.
You're nodding your head.
Let's be honest here. Maybe you have never been a politician, but when you are campaigning, their position in the county, and because you have nothing to give, you promise everything. You promise for you, I'll make you in charge of the collection of taxes in the Nairobi, for you will collect in Madaraka. And these people, you come with your people. Remember, when Kidero, I can tell you for true, when Kidero was the governor of Nairobi, you could see more people who are helping people park cars. There were more lures. Let's be honest. Now you see a different language.
No, I'm trying to say, because I mean, he's not here.
Yes,
to defend that.
I'm saying this because this is factual. So I'm trying to say everybody tend to bring their own people. Not that it's not working. It's about rewarding system. Ghost workers also, everybody come with their ghost workers list. So according to us, we have been proposing that tax collection, there are two things we need to do. It must be relational. Like even now we can advise the president and the state house. Instead of trying to do a lot of legislation, how can we make Kenyans own the process that the more taxes we collect, the more we can get services? So one thing. Then secondly, everyone in Kenya knows we steal money. So no one genuinely even believes they should actually pay taxes because we know money is being stolen. So reducing corruption and then being relational, and then secondly, trying to inculcate. For example, you gave me an example when you went to Germany, where you can go and you park your car on the street, no one is watching you. You put your car there, you go to a payment point, put a coin and pay, you can't pick your car, no one is inspected, and you go away. That is a level of responsibility. Here, you have everybody on the street collecting taxes. First of all, the cost of collecting taxes is too expensive.
Very good.
And those people want to eat. So too many people eating from taxes makes tax revenues and revenue collections become dangerous.
And that's why, the chair was talking about, inculcating a culture of honesty, a culture of straightforwardness, and inculcating a culture of proper ethos.
But also corruption is, because if you are collecting taxes which will be stolen, you can even say, Afadhali, let me give this guy 100 shillings instead of paying 300 shillings, because even if I pay 300, it will be stolen. Corruption must reduce.
I want to let us allow Whitney to say something before we wind up.
I think a solution is just we've seen that the KRA is very effective in collecting national taxes. I think we can take the KRA officials to counties to be collecting those taxes. I think that they've proven to be very efficient, very effective, and also they're meeting their revenue targets. So I think it's time to deploy the KRA officials to counties.
Very good.
On that one.
In 30 seconds, because we have to wind up.
First, His Excellency the President has actually offered to champion and support county governments to have a uniform system for own source revenue collection.
Very good.
So that's an important development,
Chair,
which has not been there before. But number two, the truth also of the matter is that there are people who have also had questions whether KRI improved their revenue collection or not. That is still a subject which can be debated.
I mean, this is a very interesting conversation, and we cannot exhaust it with just one platform. So you have to allow me for us to go to the scorecarding questions, and then thereafter we shall organize to have this conversation going on. And so, as usual, we now want to go to our two questions that we are going to scorecard. And so the first question is, in terms of service delivery, how do you rate county governments? I want to start with Misheni.
In terms of service delivery, I would rate counties at 2.
2.
Yes, I do believe that most of the counties are still yet to get to provide proper services, be it in healthcare, be it in agriculture, be it even in something like water, which is devolved. I think they're yet to provide proper services.
So you're assigning them 2.
Yes.
What about Prof? In terms of service delivery, how do you rate county governments?
I would give it a 1 because we have devolved more positions, corruptions, and we haven't devolved, if you like, resources and services. Like if you go, for example, you saw Taita Taveta is performing very poorly. 60% of the land in Taita Taveta is taken by the national park.
Very good. What about...
that's out of 5 or how many?
Yeah, that is out of 5.
Out of 5, I said I would give them B. Therefore, I would say I would put it at 3.5.
3.5. That is for service delivery.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Then question number 2. How do you rate the rollout of devolution? Let's start with Whitney.
I would give it 2 again. I do believe that even though the functions have been devolved, the resources have not followed the functions. So we see that the national government is still taking a lion's share of the budget in the functions that have been devolved. So, of course, if the national government has the resources, then it just essentially means that they've not been devolved. So 2.
You're assigning it 2.
Yes.
Very good. Let's go to the chair.
I would go to the same because actually the 2 are related. And I would say, as I said, we have made very major strides, and therefore I would still give them a score of a B, 3.5.
That is 3.5 as well. Yes, Prof.
On the role of the county government, I will give it a 2.
A 2.
The main thing here is that there is nothing like county government so far regarding the issue of service delivery, because it was supposed to do those things: economic development, service delivery, representation is what has been achieved to the highest level.
So you're giving it 2?
I'm giving it 2.
Very good indeed. Well, gentlemen, I'm sorry I have to rush you and lady, but time is not on our side actually. Let's now go to the scoreboard and get to hear more from Marie Yambo before we call it a night here.
Indeed, Brian, thank you once again to our viewers who have actually been sharing their views with us. The question we had asked, has devolution worked for you? And, in as much as we have a lot of, milestones to be proud of, most Kenyans are concerned about corruption. So William Mukabano Orlando says it was total madness, opening more room for corruption. D.O. Kawa says, just to share my tax. So for him, he doesn't see the benefits of devolution. The only thing is that his pockets are getting empty and emptier. Miriam Dakisam, it has improved many sectors. Devolution is key to marginalized places. Devolution devolved corruption. That is Jeremiah Chitechi on Facebook. Joyce Njuguna says nothing, only corruption once again. So thank you so much for taking the time to interact with us. We hope to see you again next week. My name is Marie Yambo O'Brien.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed, Marie Yambo, for those comments. And it seems like, corruption is still a big issue, at the county levels. Well, my name is O'Brien Kimani. You have been watching the Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. We have been in the company of the chair of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. This is Kithenji Kirago. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us this evening. And of course, with Nimisheni, political economist, asante sana for your time. this evening as well. And at last we have Fred Ogola, Prof, who is a governance expert, and of course Marie Yambo. Well, on behalf of the entire production team, thank you for your time. Have yourself a good night. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Otherwise, good.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto